And our next speaker is a senior UX manager and a design system leader at GoTo, formerly known as LogMeIn. She's an avid supporter of accessibility, and by her role, the Accessibility Champions program was born at GoTo. And her talk will revolve around building design systems. If you don't build your design system with a heart, it will never truly live. So with this, I would kindly invite Dr. Wendy Fox to the stage. Put your hands together for her.
So, staying on? Sounds good. Hey, everyone. Thanks for being here. Let's get started right away and dive in. So, my name is Wendy Fox. As David already mentioned, I'm really passionate about delightful, efficient, inclusive design. I'm the leader of GoTo's Chameleon Design System. You will hear this name a lot in the next 30 minutes. I'm really in love with Budapest. Most of our design system team is actually located here, Astoria building. And I get to enjoy to be here regularly. And I'm happy to be here at the conference. Many of our design colleagues have been here over the past years. I just heard of one colleague that actually stayed all 10 times that a Muse has happened, and for me it's the first time, and I get to take the stage right away, so this is really exciting, and thanks for joining me for this experience. So, and I'm selfish as I am, I also want to hear a bit about you, and you might already made that experience with Slido. We'll try something else. Let's see if I can reach my... Yay! Oh, this will be fun. Watch me struggle. So, what I want you to do is actually grab your phone. I know you're not asked a lot to do that. I'd love to hear how you are doing. I know we're almost at lunchtime, so let's hear who's already hungry, thinking of coffee, dreaming of walking around a bit, checking out the museum grounds. And oh, that's a nice one. Got some nerdy feelings, all right. There will be a few more interactive slides, so this is just to get you already comfortable with Menti. So you can keep the phone handy. I'll keep asking you, and I really want to learn from you while I share what we learned in the past. And we're on fire, that's nice, and caffeinated. I'm jealous now, I just got my water here. Awesome, I'll give you a few more seconds to join. I'm very sorry to hear about the burned out person. I'm happy to hear more later. Hola. Nice, thanks everyone. So let's see if I can get back to my slides. There we go. So what's planned for the next half hour? Obviously, we're going to look at design systems. Their increasing usage, how to fail. Let's not focus too much on that part, but really share a few of our learnings and how we failed and learned and therefore succeeded. And what to keep in mind, just not to lose hope as a design system team or any user really of a design system. There's a recent study from Material Design System from 2020, and they saw an increase of design systems in bigger companies of 22%. That's 3 years ago, so by now I guess that even doubled or tripled at this point. So they're everywhere, right? And we kind of want to make sure we're on the same page when we talk about it. So I really like this quote from Nathan A. Curtis, saying a design system is defined by being a living, funded product with a roadmap and backlog surfing an entire ecosystem. So what does that mean? I'll use our Chameleon Design System throughout the talk to just illustrate the points I'm going to make. First of all, I do want to introduce our team. So what you see here is our Chameleon Design System team. We have 3 full-time designers, 4 full-time engineers. I kind of act as the product manager and the UX manager of the team. And since a few months, I'm supported by a product owner as well. So you can already see just how the team is built. We do operate Chameleon like a product. And even though our accessibility lead is not full-time, they have a massive impact on how we run our system and impact how we prioritize our roadmap and anything accessibility related. So we've just not felt fair to not include them in the slide. So what makes Chameleon its own product and not just another library or design kit? Usually for us, it's these 3 things that should be checked. One is obviously the libraries with the foundations, the design tokens, colors, typography that are used to build your components, simple or complex ones. Then, of course, you have to have a really good understanding who your users are, who are the designers and engineers using your design system. And then, which is the magic ingredients, is that you actually have a dedicated team that runs with a clear governance, in our case, good old Kanban style, refinement, replenishment, roadmap planning, and so on. And all this is wrapped in a clear mix of patterns and guidelines, be it how we do notifications, can be loading guidelines, accessibility, responsiveness. All that together makes our design system. The clear benefit is that it helps us create a consistent on-brand experience, accelerates our designers and engineers, assists development of inclusive products, and then in general helps us to have a centralized place where we evolve and reimagine our UI. If done right, a design system can be your enabler of speed, efficiency, and quality. For us, that means a higher build velocity, easier onboarding, switching teams or collaborating across your company, and all in all, having this clear focus on quality. In our case, everything goes through 3 to 4 reviews. You can help increase the general quality of design at your company. So, hope the phones are still out. You can join this one. I'd love to hear where you're at, right? What are you using in your day-to-day life? I hope it's not the nothing one. But let's see, is there like working with icon libraries, a UI kit? Is it tokens? Do you have design guidelines and patterns at your company? I really hope the accessibility guidelines will get a high score. And of course, if there's anything else, you can choose the other one. Oh, thank you. It looked fine on my screen. There we go. Thank you. And please tell me if I leave the cursor on the slides. That's the worst thing to do. Is it working now? Anyone can do a little thumb up? Awesome. Thank you. Oh, there we go. Nice. I see we're pretty solid with libraries and principles. Tokens on the rise. Definitely check them out if you're still using hard-coded color values or typography spacing. Definitely work on those accessibility guidelines. I think there's just no excuse nowadays to not have them. And I'm very sad for that single person. Feel free to. I hope it's not the burned out one that has nothing to work with. Thanks, everyone. So, how do you get there? Before we talk about that, let's maybe address the little one of should you get there? Because I feel often it's framed as the design system is the absolute best thing to have. Everyone should have one or multiple. I don't think so. I don't agree. And there's a few good articles that also share that opinion, that you should ask yourself, how big is your design system team? How big is your team at the company? Who are your users? If you answer with, oh, there are so many, which team do you mean? Then is a good indication you actually should look at design systems. But if you're at a size, let's say a startup or 5 to 10 designers and engineers, it makes more sense to let these guidelines and patterns emerge organically and not enforce a system before you even know where you're going in terms of design guidelines and libraries. So just to quickly check that box, this is roughly where you want to start if you don't have any kind of system in place. Even if you just want to get to the stage to have a design kit or a few libraries, you always want to start with an audit of the status quo. You do not want to build something in a vacuum or in a silo, but really look at what's already there. What are the patterns that you have, the components that are used regularly? And usually you can find shared patterns, might be pages or notifications, some things that are just already organically emerged. And based on that, you can start creating your first libraries. You should definitely agree on rules. Some people call it design principles, but it can be as simple as how do we build a forms page? How do we build dialogues? Like, just start there where you have the most agreement. And then put the wrapper around, have the governance, and actually make sure you have dedicated people that look after the design system and feel responsible. Nice. Hope the contrast isn't too bad. This is out of the Design Tools survey from 2022. I can recommend checking it out. There's multiple pages of what are the tools, what are the ups and downs, and I think it's not a surprise that currently Figma is the thing that gets the best rating, it gets the most usage at the point, but there's a few more that you can check out if you want to look into what kind of tools are currently used. So, and despite there are so many step-by-step manuals, like resources, how to do it, where to get started, many design systems still fail. And maybe there's multiple people here in the room that have also experiences of a design system just not getting the adoption, just not growing the way you wanted it to do. So let's look a little bit into some of the most common challenges of failure and how to deal with them from a human relationship-based approach. Looking at all kinds of failures that I hear through me mentoring and coaching design system leaders, it usually comes down to these two. Either teams are struggling with adoption, either from the very start that it just doesn't lift off, but also sometimes it just happens at some point that the adoption decreases, they're not sure why, and the design system is abandoned. The other one that I think might even feel worse is a deviation. You feel like you have a strong centralized design system, and then you see maybe in your Figma analytics, they are detaching half the components, or the implementation doesn't match. The tokens aren't used. So I feel that is even more heartbreaking when you realize there's no multiple implementations, there's parallel libraries, and you're not even actually maintaining what is the heart of your design practice. The good thing is, when you're facing some of the challenges I'm going to go through now, it's really not automatically the path to failure, right? So if you can identify with any of the challenges that I will mention here, it's usually very helpful to reframe them as opportunities. You will usually face multiple of them or all of them. I feel like we went through all of them in the past 3 years that Chameleon has been building around. And shouldn't be too scary if you can find yourself in any of them. So let's start with I feel the most common one is the lack of leadership buy-in. You started maybe auditing with the first few libraries and you realize, okay, we now really need some leadership buy-in to get it off the ground. And you might feel very proud and very sure of what you built, but with a lack of leadership buy-in, actually this impacts your resourcing. You might not get the new resources to actually grow the team as well. It might impede adoption if you don't have that advocate in the higher ranks. And obviously, it will hinder prioritization when a team has to decide between a roadmap feature or actually migrating or introducing the design system. So what can you do? Definitely one important thing is to really understand who you're talking to and what you want to focus on. And whenever it is about getting leadership buy-in, you really want to focus on clear KPIs and clear goals that obviously tie into your business's goals. I can really recommend the ROI calculator from Knapsack. It can help you to demonstrate just simple components, how much time you can save, cost savings, effort savings, and generally using clear use cases to demonstrate benefit. Another thing that is really important is that you let your users speak for you as well. A product owner telling leadership that they can score new work or new feature half the points that they would if they were not using the design system is way more impressive than when you telling them that theoretically you will increase the efficiency and make features be released faster. Another example we had that we use a lot is from one of our Scrum Masters, sharing that it almost takes them double the time to ship a feature if they cannot use our Chameleon components. And as I mentioned, let your users speak up, right? Don't exclusively focus on the relationship with leadership when the crucial one is with your users. And similar to any product that you build, of course, you want your users to be excited about it and enjoy using the product, so then they will actually speak up and request to be able to use the product. So building a user-centered design system helps you create advocates. And then if you're struggling with resourcing, I can recommend being a really healthy and attractive team, because that attracts lateral movers from other teams that would actually like to prefer and work with you. Here's a quote from one of our designers. They were actually at the point they were building a new feature, and we still had competing design system implementations, and they choose ours because the support was so good. So it was a clear reason that our team, being very easy to reach and very supportive, made them choose the Chameleon Web Design System implementation. Opa. There we go. Oh, I jumped a few ones now. There we were. Yes, and one of our engineers had shared that thanks to Chameleon Web, it was very easy for them to implement the dark mode based on the design tokens that we use that not only include all our themes across our products, but also the dark and light modes for all of them. So as I already mentioned, one of the other common challenges is competing with other systems or with different implementations. In our case, we had multiple parallel initiatives when we were starting to build a dedicated team. We had one implementation based on Material UI, there was another one using Chakra, and then we started building more agnostic web components. So that can, of course, create a lot of friction, waste energy, and then results in inefficient resourcing if you have multiple engineering teams maintaining their own implementation of the design system. What was really crucial for us was really getting everyone a seat on the table to not just impose the new centralized design system, but everyone got a seat at the table. We invited the lead engineers and architects and really listened to understand, really understand why did you build it like this? Why would you prefer to maintain it in your team? And we're able, by writing a technical documentation paper together, to agree on the ideal, which sometimes might be the least problematic path forward, and really making sure it ties into the business goals and removes duplicate work. Similar to the previous challenge, again, if you can create advocates that enjoy using your product, they can actually help you because they always have a seat at the table. They're in the plannings, they're in the prioritization meetings. So if you have someone that consistently speaks up and pushes, that can be easier than actually creating top-down pressure. And make sure to actually support and reward your advocates, and make sure they actually feel seen and part of the team. Another one, if you become too successful, you can actually become overwhelmed by balancing the maintenance work of your component library with new work. With Chameleon Web, we're at a point where we have 50 to 53 components for the web implementation and about 26 for the mobile implementation. And it can become quite a challenge to decide between an audit, UI involvement, or a new component that is needed by multiple teams. So in our case, we're back to really creating that sense of shared ownership. If you stop imposing the design system but actually invite expert users to contribute, they will build a shared sense of ownership and are happy to contribute designs, implementations, and actually might take care of some of the maintenance for more product-specific components that might not be used all across the company. And even though my team will hate me to say that, but be okay with deprecating components or tokens that you realize are either no longer needed, you're struggling to maintain them. There are so many reasons. It's okay to audit usage and have a clear understanding of what's realistic for your team to maintain. Getting back to the topic of working in a silo, it can quickly happen that a very motivated team, maybe just starting out with the very first components and structure of the system, they can get lost in perfectionism, right? You might just be in this echo chamber and you think everything is fine, it's fantastic, aesthetic UI components, and actually it's just not what your users need. Maybe it takes too long, maybe it's not addressing the problems, maybe they focus on a component level when your problems are page designs and templates. Also, very strong insistence on fast adoption and inclusive usage can be hindering and not keeping up with industry standards, especially if you got so big that you're so busy with maintenance, you're struggling to actually evolve your UI. Here we come back to the topic of user research, right? A design system is no different than a product that you're selling outside to your customers. So you really want to always prioritize talking and listening to your users. Listen. There's a few examples of what we did throughout maturing and growing Chameleon. In the very beginning, when we started out with a single designer and a single engineer, we really just tried to find out everyone who could be a stakeholder, right? Really listen to expectations, worries, risks. We did a usage and awareness survey with our engineering teams concerning the existing implementations. We analyzed the adoption readiness across teams. And then, as I mentioned, the tech strategy, where we sat down and really wrote together with our engineering leaders on how we're going to approach the centralized design system and why does it make sense to migrate parallel implementations to this one. Once we were reaching maturity, about a year and a half, 2 years in, we started doing regular field studies. So we actually watched designers and engineers using Chameleon with a UX researcher being in a room, making sure it's like their actual day-to-day work, and just watching them, asking them to speak out loud a little bit about what they do and why, is where we learned the most crucial things. In addition to that, we usually have some topic-specific surveys. After a year and a half, we were struggling with contribution. So we did some surveys and interviews to really understand what is hindering. Was the process too complicated? Was it just an issue of making the time? So again, depending on where you're struggling, what your challenge is, you can really figure out by just scheduling a few interviews and listening to your users. And once we felt we were here to stay, we realized, okay, we do want to actually report out how we're doing, and if all those promises we made are actually true. So we started an annual user survey that has 2 focus points. One is getting more feedback from users. Is it easy to find everything in the documentation? Is handover easy? Is it clear how to contribute and when? But also learning about user satisfaction. What's their perceived sense of velocity increase? Do they actually feel like they're faster and more efficient? And there is a lot of things that once you can start tracking them and reporting them out, it gives you a very good tool to tell the story of why it makes sense to have a design system. And as hard as it might be, it's very important to meet your users where they are. Especially in our company, there's very different stages of teams, and depending on how ready they are to adopt the design system. There might be teams that operate like a startup, but there might be teams that have been around for ages. They grew up with Chameleon, no questions asked. So it makes a lot of sense to find a good sweet spot between flexibility and consistency. And this is not a ladder. So of course, you always want to start when you meet a new team or you acquire a new product or company. You want to start with the full usage, but you have to be ready to take a step back. Maybe they're just not there yet, especially when the roadmap is full with other things. Maybe they just, for now, focus on compliant designs and following your patterns and guidelines, especially things like accessibility. And other teams, the only thing where you can get the foot in the door is at least migrating them from hard-coded color values and spacing, etc., to your design token library, which will then also help you theme and help them organize their product. So, and I think that is my favorite topic. It's definitely the most challenging one to find a good balance. There's usually quite a strong feeling, especially for strong visual and UI designers, but also for engineers that like to explore and experiment, that a design system is limiting their flexibility and creativity. And let's be honest, it is at odds with how we want to do good design or good UX. You want to experiment, you want to try out things. Creativity doesn't come from following the rules all the time, right? And then on top, you can make it worse by drowning them in a process hell. So maybe you have a form for everything they want to change. In our case, we pretty much do most of our support through Slack. We have 2 Slack channels, one for designers, one for engineering, where they can just write to us. Maybe they spotted a bug. Maybe they want another variant. Maybe they're struggling with how a component is built. For us, it's very important to make it as easy as possible to reach us, to contribute, and to give feedback. So what can we do to actually embrace creativity? There are a few good ways to reframe using a design system as an opportunity. In our case, for those who knew us as LongMeIn up until 2 years ago, the rebranding was a fantastic tool for us to invite designers that are really passionate about UI to come, join the design system team, and actually be part of how we rebrand our products, how we will use the new GoTo branding in the products that we build. And then, in general, inviting collaboration, right? Don't prohibit designers from exploring new things as long as they come back to you and share their learnings. And of course, the same goes for engineering. Like, invite engineers to do spikes. We get fantastic contribution for making our components more flexible, modularize them. Versioning was a contribution as well. So, in general, it makes a lot of sense to let your users break the rules, as hard and as counterintuitive it might sound initially. So let's do one more. Whoa. That didn't work. Ta-da. So, as I mentioned, I'm selfish like that, so I'd love to hear also from you and learn a bit what are the most common challenges that you have been facing or experienced in your day-to-day work. Seems like we got a bit of a clear winner here, closely followed by the lack of buy-in. Especially with the system being too rigid, that is something that is a fantastic opportunity to just invite, especially those users that are most frustrated, where usually you know, right? Usually you know who's the designer that is really annoyed using your components and not being able to explore. Like, invite those people, invite your users that are most frustrated, invite those stakeholders that are not trusting the system, walk them through the KPIs and goals, show them the ROI of your design system, get them on the table, build that shared sense of ownership. This is your strongest tool, especially when you're struggling with the leadership buy-in and the rigidity. Awesome. Let's slowly wrap up. So, what are 3 things that I would give to you to keep in mind? If you don't remember any of the other slides, these are the 3 things. And as most things come, right, this is not a perfect recipe. It's usually about balance, about understanding where your users hurt the most and focus on those issues first. For me and for our team, I think the biggest one is that empathy is more important than a perfect system. A perfect system that has no adoption, that is constantly being detached and has a lot of parallel work is not going to work out. It's going to fail. So the more empathetic you are with your users, the more you're interested and really research their needs and their frustrations, the more likely your design system will succeed. One example, I think that's a good one, we recently acquired a company, and it was that typical having a single UX designer in the whole setup. And you don't go in and say, hey, by the way, we have a design system, please use the whole thing, good luck, right? So we came in, and we're just like, hey, can you walk us through how you operate, and what is your pain? And one of the pains was that they didn't even have a clear color library. They used like 20 different shades of blue all over the product. So we had a good, interesting pain point, and we could pair one of our design system designers and actually help them audit their library and audit the colors they have, which then enabled us to match it with our design tokens and actually create a theme for their product that we can then easily switch over to our theming. So you should always start with, what's your pain point? How can we help? And that's where you usually can get users to talk to you and build that relationship. And I guess this has been obvious out of my talk, but I do think relationships are more important than mandates. It feels easier and it feels more obvious to just have a top-down mandate, to just tell everyone it's mandatory to use this design system. But in the end, this is just one of the puzzle pieces, right? You do want to have this mandate, but if your users don't trust you, and if you're not building a product that they love, and if they don't feel a sense of shared ownership of your design system, the mandate is not going to help a lot. And let your users break the rules, right? Leave a little bit space for innovation. As satisfying as it can be to build this perfect system, I was there myself, right? It's really nice if you can put everything in a rule book and tell everyone how to use it. You need to be okay with them breaking the rules, exploring new things, coming back, and actually contributing it to your design system. And a little bonus one, getting back to the topic of building a design system with our heart. For us, it is absolutely crucial that the team is very healthy and happy. It is a high-pressure job. You are usually the assistant, the supporter. They have to be very resilient and patient. They have to be fine with constantly explaining, repeating the documentation that someone could have just read by themselves, all these things. So it's really important to keep the team healthy. For us, it's a lot of team building and retros and making sure everyone feels heard and can also vent and share their frustrations. Will also attract colleagues and people outside the company wanting to work with you. So on in all, I think it just boils down to finding that sweet spot of that service provider mindset and an actual product team. Finding that balance where you have your own roadmap, you treat it as a product, and you can report how it is concerning user satisfaction, how it's actually increasing the efficiency and creates a consistent user journey. But you also want to have that service provider mindset that you're there to support your designers and engineers to shine. You're there to support them to build fantastic products. So find that sweet spot, and then I hope you can be as successful as we've been with Chameleon in the past 3 years. And that's it. Thanks so much. Really cool to be here.
Thank you so much, Wendy, for presenting all of this. It's time for Q&A, at least 3 questions. Let's try to aim for that. The first question is a bit of a show and tell one, right? So could you show your design system, how it looks and how it's structured, or should the audience catch you during the event and then you will
Yes,
show?
absolutely catch me. I'm happy to walk you through it. It's currently not public, but I'm happy to give you a little bit of insight and show you how we structure everything.
Thank you. The next one, do you test the accessibility compliance with real users, and how do you do it?
Yes, absolutely. On the design system level, we test ourselves, but on the bigger product level, we do testings and surveys with users with disability. We had a survey with about 1,000 participants, specifically to GoToMeeting. In that case, learning about how disabilities impact usage of video meeting tools, and based on that, learning where to prioritize. And those learnings are also what helped us build the Accessibility Champions program, and then helps us to know how to test our system, and then getting external vendors that can help us to assure proper accessibility testing.
Cool, thank you. The next question, how can a company merge different design systems that were developed in parallel? Should one team just adopt the other?
It really depends if by different design systems you really mean fully different components, visual identity, and the implementation. If it's just the implementations, what helped for us, as I mentioned, was really getting everyone from the engineering side on a table and building the tech strategy together and get that buy-in, or at least agree to disagree, and then slowly start migrating the other non-maintained implementations to the centralized one. If it's full-on design systems with different visuals, I think you really have to start with understanding why you have those. Is it because you merge companies? Is it because you actually have products that look completely different? So I think the audit is what would really help to get started, to understand why is it so different? And maybe there's a good reason, right? So maybe there's an actually good reason to have parallel design systems, but ideally I would look into, can we just do it with the tokens? Can we just theme them differently if it's the product that needs a different visual identity.
Cool.
This is loud.
Yeah, there's a party outside. I don't know.
Because the party
So,
started.
Yeah. Let's go with one more, and I'm sure like you can catch Wendy during the day. So if you have any
I'll be
other
here.
questions, does shared ownership means to open source the design system, or how does this ownership contribution work?
Yeah, it's definitely on our roadmap for what the team wishes to do with Chameleon. So it's on our top 5 things to do in the next 5 years. Right now it is not public, but within the company, it is fully accessible. Everyone can have a look. Everyone can contribute. We have clear structures on how to approach us, what to bring, and then anyone in the whole company working on our products can approach us and contribute to the design system.
Amazing. Thank you so much for answering a few
Thank you.
questions. And we have a small gift for you as well. So thank you for taking
Awesome.
this opportunity and some cool artwork.
Oh,
So
wow.
Enjoy.
Nice. Thank you.